Hi, my name is Susan. Welcome back to Susan's Sacred Connections, where I will share my innermost thoughts and feelings about certain subjects, such as shadow work. That's what we're here to discuss today. So, what is shadow work? Shadow work is the work that you do in order for you to become more balanced and for you to shed light on your shadow aspects, for you to embrace your shadow. So, what is your shadow? Your shadow is the aspects of yourself that you reject, repress, suppress. This is my demonstration piece right here. So, this is your consciousness. This little piece is your consciousness. That is what you're actually aware of. Everything underneath here, you're not aware of. So whatever my hand is covering in this piece of your brain, let's say of your mind, actually is better, is what is covered. It is your shadow self, shadow aspects. When you just uncover it, you might be really scared. This is the thing. So you might be very, very scared of what's underneath here because you have suppressed it and repressed it for so long that you have made it into something that you're not, that because you're not aware of it, right? So you might be so scared to do the shadow work because you don't know what you're going to discover. But the thing is that fear is an illusion, right? So in order for you to uncover anything that is fearful within you, you have to love it. You have to embrace it. So this is going to take courage. This is going to take strength. So you will sit down and you will do some shadow work. Different things, different techniques. I like journaling. I like to meditate. So in meditation, I will come up with what I want to uncover within myself, and then I will write in my journal about it. And everything just sort of comes out naturally in that way for me. But for you, it might be something different. There are tons of like worksheets that you can Google. Just Google shadow work worksheets or anything like that, and you will be able to get sheets that will give you prompts so you can do this work on your own if you don't want to sit there and meditate and come up with original ideas, create your own ideas on how to do this. So anyway, I like to do like a whole ritual in order to uncover my shadow aspects. So what I do is I light candles. I sometimes burn incense because I like to have that as a sense. I like to use all my senses when I do work, trance meditational work or shadow work or inner child work. It's all the same thing to me. So anyway, I set the stage. Sometimes I put some nice mellow music, depending on what I feel like doing for that instance, and I go with the flow. I just allow my intuition to sort of guide me. That's what your guides are there for, right? So in order to uncover what is covered and what has been covered for like a long, long time, you have to just let go. You have to allow. And then you get that beautiful rose quartz piece or whatever it is that is within your consciousness. Then you become whole. Then you become balanced. And that is what we're heading towards. In order to have a 5D experience and a Christ consciousness life, we have to become whole. We have to become balanced again. Repressing our shadow doesn't work. It hasn't worked ever, and it's not going to work now. It's never, ever going to work. So in order for us to live in that density and that dimensional state of Christ consciousness, we have to do this work. We have to heal those parts of us that have been neglected for a long time. So I just want to give my shadow work, one of my shadow works that I've done recently, as an example. So shadow work happens to be the best way in order to understand and have empowered awareness over your own psyche. Carl Jung was the one that coined and did the work for shadow self and a whole bunch of other amazing psychological insights that he had in his time. He worked with Freud, but I personally like Carl Jung a lot more because he dealt a lot with spirituality and how spirituality meets the psyche. He understood psychic awareness. He understood collective unconscious, which I actually call universal consciousness. We're not aware of that consciousness, but it's there. And if we meditate, we can tap into that. Everyone can do that. You can do that. I can do that. We all can, because we are made to be able to do that. Otherwise, no one would be able to do it. So what happens is when you're a child, due to your society, due to different circumstances of your family and your neighborhood, your neighbors, your friends, whatever the case is, what happens is they will say certain things and you will internalize these things that you hear for the fact that you want to fit in to your society, because we're social creatures. We want to be able to fit in our surroundings, and that's a survival mechanism. It's like survival of the fittest. You have to come up with ways that will help you become part of your society. Otherwise, you're an outcast, and no one wants to be the outcast, right? So anyway, back in many years ago when I was a child, I was very boisterous. I was very active and like lively. I just love to entertain and to inspire people, to make them happy. And that's who I was as a child. I was more extroverted. I mean, I've always been introverted, but I was more extroverted when I was a child. And then due to certain circumstances, I became more and more introverted, which actually worked out for me. But like I said, we want to become whole individuals. We want to self-actualize, and we want to become balanced, because that is where we're heading, and that is what we'll be able to do if we trust in the process. Okay, so I overheard when I was around 3 or 4 years old, I overheard someone, a distant relative member of my family, say something that I perceived as negative. So she said something about, I just want to make sure that you understand, I really admired this person. I really cared for this person and held this person, this lady, in very high regard. So when I overheard her, I was actually in front of her. When I overheard her say that I didn't speak properly Spanish at the time, right? So because I didn't speak properly at 3 or 4 years old and my cousin did, that made me feel less than, and it gave me a sense of shame. So how that has transpired into now is that I've been so fearful of public speaking. Even me sitting here in front of this camera sharing this story with you is like a bit nerve-wracking, and it's very fearful because I don't want to be rejected and I don't want to be judged. But that is part of the shadow work, right? So we have to embrace these aspects of us in order to become whole and balanced within ourselves. So that is what I discovered, and that is why the fear of public speaking that was rooted in a shame and a lower self-esteem because of that shame came about. So the shame, though, is a very fun, your brain is a very, very funny thing. It really messes with you, if you will, because shame can be used. Everything is neutral. Nothing is bad or good. Everything just is. It's just existing, right? So shame can be used for good things and shame can be used for bad things. In the vibrational scale, shame is not very high in the vibrational scale. Love is a much better vibration, a much higher vibration, and so is joy, and so is gratitude, which you can all Google because I'm sure there's tons of material out there about this. But so the shame about public speaking, because I would be rejected for being who I was or who I am, became so overpowering that whenever I was having to speak publicly in, say, the classroom growing up, I felt my heart race and I had panic attacks because of this. So anxiety set in and all these things physiologically happened because of this fear that I had developed over this one circumstance from my childhood. It was a really horrible experience to sit in class having to read a book in front of everyone because I really didn't want to do that. It felt so horrible. It felt like, that sense of fear which makes you want to run or freeze. I usually just froze, but that's another story. So the thing is that once you do the shadow work and you incorporate these parts of yourself, these aspects, and then you assimilate, that's what you want to do. You want to assimilate. You don't want to neglect it. You don't want to suppress or repress these aspects of your psyche anymore, because what that can do, it can fester. And what that can translate to would be something sort of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, in the story, Dr. Jekyll was sort of saintly and was very good and admired and revered in his community and his society. Meanwhile, his alter ego, his shadow complex, became so personified when things were triggered within him that he became a monster. That is his shadow aspect, because he repressed it for so long, he neglected for so long that it just took over his willpower, okay? So when we talk about possessions, that's more in alignment to what is actually happening. There's no evil spirit that's possessing you. It is your shadow aspect that you have neglected and repressed for so long that comes over and takes over your willpower. And it is triggered by circumstances where stress is perceived to be very big, or when you are very tired. That can also trigger this response, or this response, or when you're intoxicated, because then your inhibitions are completely taken away, and then your alter ego or your shadow aspect can come in and have a field day with everything around you. So we want to become conscious of the unconscious part of us, of the repressed part of us that we call the shadow. Shadow is not a bad thing. Shadow is not a good thing. It is neutral. It is just a repression of your perceived negative aspects. Being boisterous is neutral. It could be perceived as a good thing because you're voicing your opinion, or it can be perceived as a bad thing because you're voicing your opinion, right? It's all about perception. It's a judgment, and that is what is triggered when you're in the state of childhood in development, and then that's what creates your shadow self, which is what we're working to integrate again and to become whole and balanced. So I just wanted to read a little thing that I wrote in my blog, which is sacredconnections8.com. So the breaking of conditioning patterns that binds you is a neutral process. If you perceive it as having to take time, so it shall be that because you think it so. Our thoughts are creating our reality. We are creators. If you perceive it as being a difficult process, then it will most definitely be that, and you will attach to suffering. If you perceive it to be already done, so it is. You are the masters within the matrix. You are the master of self. So it's time to take accountability. It's time to take responsibility for your inner work, for your shadow work, for your child's inner work. It's time to embrace balance, harness balance. It's time to become whole again. And enough with the fragmentation, enough with the mind games that you play with yourself, that you say, don't think about the rock. Don't think about the rock. Don't think about the rock you're holding. Oh, but it's here. It's here. How can I not think about it when it's here? So the more that you resist something, the more it shows up. It's just what the law of vibration does, right? The other part of this is on the new dawn, once we are balanced and whole, letting go of things will be much simpler. Being attuned and in tune to one's inner voice will achieve a new level in ascension. Intuition within self will be more developed. Illusions will continue to disperse, since a balanced and whole individual creates a balanced and whole society. These are the energies that will be supported by the mastery of achieving true balance within self. Moving past illusions will always be guided by tuning in to each inner self. The gift of insight will disperse any lingering illusions and distortions once mastery of balance has been achieved, and we will achieve it. It's happening. The more we are lighting up these shadow aspects within ourselves, and we light up these shadow aspects within our society, the more integrated we become and the more balanced and whole we become. That is what we want to succeed at. That is the mastery that we are mastering at this moment. We want to integrate, we want to become balanced. If life gives you lemons, it's your choice whether you want to frown and feel the sourness of the lemons and taste the sourness of the lemons, or you can choose to make lemonade and sell your lemonade, right? It's abundance. It is here for you. It is here for every single one of us, as long as we choose to master ourself. And that is the only thing that we can master, is ourself. I hope that that message was clear. And if you have any questions, please comment share, subscribe. I will love to interact with you so we can have this co-creation together. I'd rather co-create than just create on my own, which is probably part of my shame that I'm integrating. But anyway, much love to you. Thank you so much for tuning in.